is the personal information of DACA recipients?
Thank you.
Will you move to the board to what happened to the DACA?
All right, just listening right there to Attorney General Jeff Sessions announcing that this administration is rescinding the DACA program put in place by President Obama in 2012 to protect some 800,000 immigrants, people who were brought here as children illegally by their parents. They had been protected from deportation. Attorney General Sessions calling it a circumvention of immigration law, unconstitutional exercise, an overreach, and disrespect for the legislative process. And that is why they're calling for a lawful and orderly wind down. A big announcement, a lot to analyze. With us, the panel is back with me. Jeffrey Toobin, CNN senior legal analyst, is joining us as well. Jeffrey, what do you make? What's your first reaction to the announcement from Attorney General Jeff Sessions?
Well, 800,000 people are in a lot of trouble. 800,000 people who grew up in this country are very much at risk of being deported, because I don't think anyone believes that Congress is on the verge of passing a legislative DACA, as it were. So I think, you know, just in simple human terms, these people are in jeopardy. As for the legality of DACA, whether the President Obama had the authority to do it, that's a very hotly contested issue. Some conservative judges in Texas and in the Fifth Circuit had said that he did not have the authority, but many other people believe the president did have the authority, and the Supreme Court would ultimately uphold DACA, but we'll never know now because DACA is off the books. So the question is whether Congress will act at all. I certainly haven't seen any indication that Congress is ready to act to defend these 800,000 people, and I think they are in serious, serious trouble of being thrown out of this country.
Crystal, what do you make of the fact that this announcement, the Attorney General spent a lot of time talking about the president is doing this and what the president has done to put all the kind of the wheels in motion here in place, but the announcement is not coming from the president that DACA is being rescinded, even though it's a presidential executive order. The announcement came from the Attorney General.
Yeah, with whom the President of the United States has had a testy relationship, Kate, calling him beleaguered, among other things. A little bit there, not sort of out of protocol. It's not as though the Secretary of the Interior was making an announcement, but for someone who likes big moments, you would think Donald Trump would be interested in this. He did, of course, as you noted at the top of the show, preempt the Sessions announcement by saying the ball is in your court, essentially, Congress, confirming what we reporting had said, which is that we were going to get this delay. I just, listening to Jeff Sessions, I was thinking back to after the 2012 election, when the Republican National Committee convened a group of very smart consultants, campaign professionals from across the ideological spectrum to try and figure out what was wrong with the party and how to fix it. It's called the Growth and Opportunity Project. They put out a long document with recommendations. On either the first or second page of it, they basically say this cannot be a white-only party. We have to figure a way to reach Hispanic voters. No matter what you think of Sessions' reliance on this is the rule of law has to hold or society crumbles, which is essentially the argument he was making, this coupled with the things that Donald Trump has said on the campaign trail, and I'm with Jeffrey, I'm suspicious that Congress will get anything done on this, if DACA winds up being rolled back, makes that 2012 blueprint, that autopsy, feel like it was written 150 years ago. The party has just gone in a drastically different direction, led by Donald Trump.
But in this moment, Paul Callan, we were listening to it, you're sitting here with me, an orderly and lawful wind down. Is it clear to you what that means, coming from the AG?
No, it's not, and I think this may not be as dire as people think, because he's not saying we're eliminating DACA today, and we're going to start deporting the 800,000.
I also didn't hear 6 months or the time period.
I didn't hear a time period, and I think what that means is if Congress can't put together a solution to this problem, the Trump administration has the right to probably extend the wind down period, unless there's a court lawsuit that's filed, which they lose. So I think there are a lot of open questions with respect to this statement.
Alfonso Aguilar, let me bring you in on this. What's your reaction to this announcement from the Attorney General as he laid it out? What do you you think of the case that he made?
No, I just disagree with the last statement. This is a pretty horrible announcement. It's insulting and it's sad. If the goal of the President of the United States was to deal with heart, as he said, with DACA recipients, then I have to say the President failed miserably. I understand if you have a problem with the constitutionality of how DACA was created. It wasn't created in the constitutionally appropriate way. I agree with that. But if you really care about them, the President should make a commitment to support legislation to provide a permanent status to DACA recipients and to ensure that Congress passes legislation. You know, it's not enough to punt to Congress and say, oh, Congress, it's your responsibility, it's the legislative responsibility. The President is part of the constitutional political process, and the only way we can get a DREAM Act legislation is if the President gives the green light to that legislation and works with Congress to ensure that this passes. But right now, the only thing I'm hearing is amending the program is the responsibility of Congress. And frankly, to have Jeff Sessions, the Attorney General, announce this, it's really insulting to the Latino community. Jeff Sessions is seen as somebody who's taken very hardline positions on immigration, certainly not a friend of the Hispanic community. They could have had somebody else make the announcement, the acting Secretary of Homeland Security, who's responsible for the DACA program, not the Attorney General. So overall, this is just terrible.
Dana, go ahead.
Yeah, that's exactly why Jeff Sessions was chosen to do this. He is the Attorney General of the United States, but he also is somebody who represents, for the conservative base, somebody who is going to fight their fight. And already the conservative base is upset that they're even considering punting this to Congress, that they're not just saying it's over and done with, and the President won't sign anything that would allow the 800,000 dreamers to stay in this country. So that was clearly done on purpose, because Chris Cillizza, the Republican Party that tried to get to the point where they are going to reach out beyond white Republicans, that went bye-bye in a large way in 2016, and they know that. But I also do think, just again, Jeffrey started this on the human point of view. Yeah. You know, he didn't get into a lot of the specifics on what this actually means for the lives of these people who are living here as Americans, as very much integrated into the fabric of American society. And the initial sense is that while ICE agents, the Border Patrol agents, aren't going to be knocking down doors and looking for them, if they find them, then it's going to be a judgment call as to whether or not these people should be deported or not. And so that is scary for people who voluntarily gave up their information after DACA.
Alfonso, hold on 1 second. I want to bring in one voice that hasn't had a chance to speak yet. Secretary of State Alex Padilla. How do you want to see Democrats respond to this announcement? And what do you want to see Democrats say in Congress now?
Look, Kate, let me just echo Alfonso for a second here. Donald Trump promised to show heart. What we're seeing today is not him showing heart. He's shown callousness and cowardice by not having the guts to make this statement, make this announcement himself. They put Attorney General Sessions on the podium to make this statement on his behalf. The first two things that come to mind are number one, he's trying to shed responsibility here for his decision, his choice, his action. But by punting it to Congress, or attempting to punt it to Congress, it's not going to work. If you look at the House, where the Freedom Caucus has disproportionate control over the Republican conference, and in the rules of the Senate, where a member can hold an item and it takes 60 votes to get anything passed. I'm normally an optimist, but the roadmap that they've laid out to save DACA is not a promising one. The other thing, as a Latino in the United States, I can't help but note the hypocrisy here. Attorney General Sessions quoted the Obama signing of DACA initially as, quote, nullifying a law that he disagreed with. Just 10 days ago, Donald Trump pardoned Sheriff Arpaio in Arizona. Why? Because he was nullifying a violation of law that he disagreed with. So what kind of message does this send, that in a span of 10 days, you pardon Sheriff Arpaio, who was found to violate the civil rights of Latinos, and then 10 days later, you take these important protections away from DACA participants? It's unconscionable.
We have much more to discuss. We have much more to learn in terms of the details. Just on one point, and when you talk about not having faith in what Congress can pull off, there is one element of this that might be different here, is that you do hear from Republican leaders, even though they've had a problem getting their caucuses and conferences together so far recently, you do hear them being supportive of some kind of solution, permanent solution, when it comes to protecting Dreamers and giving them some more permanent protections that would not be to the whim of a president, would not be an executive order. But we're getting some more details right now, if you all could stick with me, on how